Hello there, and welcome to another peaceful journey through history. Tonight, we're going to explore something quite fascinating, the harsh realities of life aboard a pirate ship during the golden age of piracy. But don't worry, we'll take this voyage together in the most relaxing way possible, letting the gentle rhythm of our story carry you wherever you need to go. Before we set sail into this tale, I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from right now? And what time is it where you are? It's truly wonderful to think about how this story will travel across time zones, reaching listeners in different corners of the world at all hours of the day and night. There's something magical about sharing stories across the globe this way, isn't there? No matter where you are or what time it is, we're all here together for the next little while, about to discover why life aboard a pirate ship was far more challenging than any romantic adventure story would have you believe. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin this gentle exploration of maritime history. Close your eyes if you'd like, and let your imagination drift back to the early 18th century, when the Caribbean seas were home to some of the most notorious pirates in history. We'll discover together why, despite all the romanticized tales, you and I would have found life aboard these vessels to be quite impossible indeed. Our story begins on a warm Caribbean morning in 1715, where the crystal-clear waters lap gently against the hull of a ship that has seen better days. The vessel creaks and groans as it rocks with the rhythm of the waves, and if you were to step aboard, the first thing that would strike you wouldn't be the romance or adventure you might expect. No, the first thing you'd notice would be the smell. Imagine, if you will, the most unpleasant combination of odors you've ever encountered, then multiply that by 10. This is the reality of life aboard a pirate ship, a floating world where personal hygiene was not just difficult, it was nearly impossible. The air would be thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, rotting food, stagnant water, and human waste. There were no bathrooms as we know them today, no running water, no soap readily available, and certainly no privacy for personal care. Let's take a moment to consider what this means for someone like you, living in our modern world. You're probably accustomed to showering daily, brushing your teeth twice a day, changing into clean clothes, and having access to clean restrooms whenever you need them. These simple luxuries that we take for granted would be completely absent from your life aboard a pirate ship. Instead, you'd be lucky to rinse yourself with salt water once a week, and that's only if fresh water wasn't desperately needed for drinking. The sleeping arrangements would be equally shocking to modern sensibilities. Picture this. You'd be sharing a cramped, dark space below deck with anywhere from 20 to 100 other men, all of whom hadn't bathed in weeks or months. The hammocks, if you were lucky enough to have one, would be strung so close together that you'd literally be touching your neighbors on either side. The air would be stifling, thick with the breath and body odor of dozens of people, and the constant motion of the ship would make peaceful sleep nearly impossible. But let's go deeper into this world, shall we? The physical demands of life aboard a pirate ship would be unlike anything most of us have ever experienced. From the moment you woke up, usually before dawn, your day would be filled with back-breaking labor. The romantic image of pirates lounging on deck, counting treasure, couldn't be further from the truth. Instead, you'd spend your days hauling heavy ropes, climbing rigging in dangerous weather, scrubbing decks, and performing countless other manual tasks that would leave your hands raw and bleeding, your back aching, and your muscles screaming for relief. Consider the sails, for instance. These massive sheets of canvas could weigh hundreds of pounds when wet, and they needed constant attention. When a storm approached, you'd be required to climb high up into the rigging, perhaps 40 or 50 feet above the deck, while the ship pitched and rolled in heavy seas. With no safety equipment, no harnesses, and often in the middle of the night, you'd have to work with numb, wet fingers to secure or adjust these sails. One slip, one moment of lost concentration, and you'd plummet to your death on the deck below, or disappear forever into the churning sea. The food situation would be another aspect of pirate life that would horrify modern sensibilities. Forget about fresh fruits and vegetables, refrigeration, or even basic food safety. Your daily sustenance would consist largely of hardtack, a type of biscuit so hard it could break your teeth, and salt pork or beef that had been preserved in barrels for months. The hardtack would often be infested with weevils, small beetles that would burrow through the biscuits, leaving them riddled with holes and crawling with larvae. Pirates would sometimes eat their hardtack in the dark, simply to avoid seeing the insects they were consuming. The water situation was equally grim. Fresh water was precious beyond measure, and what little was available would be stored in wooden barrels where it would quickly become stagnant and foul-tasting. Green algae would grow on the surface, and the water would develop a slimy consistency that would make you gag. When water supplies ran low, as they often did, you'd be reduced to drinking your own urine, or in desperate situations, seawater, which would only hasten your death from dehydration. Disease was a constant companion on these ships. Without proper sanitation, clean water, or adequate nutrition, illnesses spread like wildfire through the cramped quarters. Scurvy, caused by a lack of vitamin C, would cause your teeth to fall out, your gums to bleed, and your skin to develop painful sores. Dysentery would leave you weak and dehydrated, with constant diarrhea that would soil your only set of clothes. Typhus, carried by the rats that infested every corner of the ship, would bring high fevers and delirium that could kill you within days. And speaking of rats, these weren't just occasional visitors to the ship, they were permanent residents, often outnumbering the human crew. They would eat through food supplies, contaminate water, and spread disease. They would scurry over your body while you slept, nibble at your toes, and leave their droppings in your meager food rations. The constant scratching and scrabbling of their claws on wood would create a soundtrack of unease that would follow you day and night. The work itself would be relentless and dangerous. Modern safety regulations didn't exist, and the concept of workers' rights was completely foreign. You'd be expected to work from dawn to dusk, 7 days a week, in all weather conditions. During storms, when the ship was in genuine danger, you might work for 24 hours straight, battling wind and waves just to keep the vessel afloat. The captain's word was absolute law, and disobedience could result in severe punishment or death. Let's pause for a moment and consider the tools you'd be working with. Every rope, every pulley, every piece of equipment would be rough and primitive by modern standards. The ropes would be made of hemp or manila, coarse enough to tear the skin from your hands after just a few hours of work. Without gloves, which were a luxury few could afford, your palms would quickly become a mass of calluses, cuts, and rope burns. The metal fittings would be rough forged iron, prone to sharp edges and rust that would cut you at the slightest touch. The weather would be another constant adversary. Under the blazing Caribbean sun, with no sunscreen or protective clothing, your skin would burn, blister, and peel repeatedly. The salt spray would make these burns even more painful, creating a constant source of agony. During storms, you'd be soaked to the bone in clothing that would never fully dry, leading to fungal infections and skin rot. The constant dampness would make everything you owned moldy and foul-smelling. Privacy, as we understand it, simply didn't exist. Every aspect of your life would be conducted in full view of your shipmates. There would be no private spaces, no moments of solitude, no escape from the constant presence of others. This lack of privacy would wear on your mental health in ways that are difficult to imagine. The psychological pressure of never being alone, never having a moment to yourself, would be overwhelming for someone accustomed to modern life. The noise would be another constant assault on your senses. The creaking of the ship's timbers, the flapping of sails, the shouting of orders, the groaning of ropes under strain. All of this would create a cacophony that would never cease. Even during the quiet hours of the night, the ship would continue its symphony of sounds, making restful sleep nearly impossible. Let's consider the medical care you could expect if you were injured or became ill. The ship's surgeon, if there was one at all, would likely be a barber or someone with minimal medical training. Surgical instruments would be crude and unsterilized, and the operating table would be a wooden board in the dim light below deck. Anesthesia didn't exist, so any surgery would be performed while you were fully conscious, held down by your shipmates, as the surgeon worked. Many men died not from their original injuries, but from the infections that inevitably followed such primitive medical procedures. The psychological toll of constant danger would also be immense. Every day would bring new threats: enemy ships, storms, disease, or the ever-present possibility of mutiny. You'd live in a state of perpetual anxiety, never knowing if you'd see another sunrise. The stress of this existence would manifest in various ways. Some men would become paranoid and aggressive, others would sink into deep depression, and many would turn to rum as their only escape from the harsh realities of their lives. The isolation from the civilized world would be another factor that would wear on your mental state. Months could pass without seeing land or encountering another friendly vessel. You'd be cut off from news of home, from family and friends, from any sense of connection to the world you once knew. Letters home were impossible, and the chances of ever seeing your loved ones again would grow dimmer with each passing day. The social dynamics aboard the ship would be complex and often brutal. Pirates operated under their own codes of law, but these were harsh and unforgiving. Theft from your fellow crew members might result in being marooned on a deserted island, with nothing but a pistol and a single bullet. Cowardice in battle could lead to a brutal flogging that would leave permanent scars. The hierarchy was strictly enforced, and challenging authority could result in immediate and violent punishment. Speaking of violence, it would be a constant presence in your life. Not just the violence of battle, but the everyday brutality that was considered normal aboard these ships. Fights would break out regularly over food, sleeping space, or perceived slights. The strong would dominate the weak, and if you couldn't defend yourself, you'd quickly find yourself at the bottom of the social order, subject to abuse and exploitation by your shipmates. The uncertainty of income would also be a constant source of stress. Unlike modern jobs with regular paychecks, pirate ventures were entirely dependent on successful raids. You might go months without capturing a single valuable prize, during which time you'd receive no compensation for your labors. When a successful raid did occur, the division of loot would often lead to arguments, fights, and lasting resentments among the crew. The legal status of piracy meant that you'd be living as an outlaw, with no recourse to justice or protection under the law. If captured by naval forces, you'd face almost certain execution. There would be no appeals, no legal representation, no hope of clemency. The shadow of the gallows would hang over every day of your life, a constant reminder of the price of your chosen profession. The physical environment of the ship itself would be hostile to human comfort. The wooden decks would be slippery with salt water and algae, creating a constant hazard for falls and injuries. The low ceilings below deck would mean that anyone of average height would have to walk in a perpetual crouch, leading to chronic back problems. The lack of proper lighting would strain your eyes and make detailed work nearly impossible. Temperature control would be non-existent. In the tropical heat of the Caribbean, the below-deck areas would become sweltering furnaces, while during storms or cooler weather, the same spaces would be damp and chilly. There would be no way to regulate your body temperature effectively, leading to constant discomfort and increased susceptibility to illness. The waste management system, or lack thereof, would be another source of constant discomfort and health hazards. Human waste would be disposed of through holes in the deck called heads, located at the front of the ship where the spray would theoretically wash away the waste. However, in practice, this system was ineffective and unsanitary, leading to contamination of the living areas and the spread of disease. Personal possessions would be minimal and constantly at risk. Pirates typically owned little more than the clothes on their backs, and perhaps a few personal items stored in a small sea chest. These possessions would be subject to theft, damage from seawater, and destruction during battles or storms. The concept of accumulating belongings, or creating a comfortable living space, would be foreign to this lifestyle. The work schedule would be relentless and unpredictable. Unlike modern jobs with set hours and days off, pirate work was dictated by the needs of the ship and the whims of the sea. A sudden storm might require all hands to work through the night, while a becalmed ship might mean days of boring maintenance work under the scorching sun. There would be no weekends, no holidays, no scheduled breaks from the constant demands of life at sea. Communication with the outside world would be virtually impossible. There were no radios, no telephones, no way to send messages or receive news. You'd be completely cut off from current events, unable to learn about births, deaths, or important happenings in your homeland. This isolation would contribute to a sense of being forgotten by the world, of existing in a limbo between civilization and the unknown. The educational and cultural opportunities that we take for granted would be completely absent. There would be no books to read, no music to enjoy, no art to appreciate. Entertainment would be limited to crude songs, gambling and storytelling. The intellectual stimulation that many of us require for mental health would be entirely lacking, leading to a gradual dulling of the mind and spirit. As we drift toward the end of this first part of our journey, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've discovered. The physical realities of pirate life, the smells, the discomfort, the constant labor, the poor food, the lack of hygiene, the ever-present danger, would be overwhelming for anyone accustomed to modern conveniences. But these were just the beginning of the challenges you'd face. The romantic image of pirates that we see in movies and books bears little resemblance to the harsh truth of life aboard these vessels. The freedom that pirates supposedly enjoyed came at the cost of comfort, safety, health, and often life itself. The treasure that motivated these men was rarely enjoyed, as the lifestyle itself was too brutal and dangerous to allow for much pleasure or leisure. As you settle in for the night, wherever you are in the world, take a moment to appreciate the simple comforts that surround you. The clean sheets, the comfortable mattress, the climate-controlled room, the security of knowing that clean water and nutritious food are readily available. These are luxuries that no pirate ever knew. The ability to choose your daily activities, to communicate with loved ones, to seek medical care when needed, to live without constant fear of violence or death. These freedoms are precious beyond measure. In our next part of this peaceful journey, we'll explore the social and psychological challenges that would make pirate life even more impossible for modern people. We'll discover how the complex relationships, the unwritten rules, and the constant psychological pressure would test your mental resilience in ways you've never imagined. But for now, let the gentle rhythm of the waves carry your thoughts, and rest easy knowing that you're safe in your comfortable world, far from the harsh realities of the pirate's life. Sleep well, dear listener, wherever you are in this wide world of ours. Welcome back to our peaceful exploration of pirate life, dear listener. As we continue our journey through the harsh realities of the high seas, let's drift into the complex world of social dynamics and psychological pressures that would make survival aboard a pirate ship nearly impossible for someone from our modern world. Picture yourself waking up in that cramped, foul-smelling hammock we described earlier. The first challenge you'd face wouldn't be the physical discomfort, but something far more subtle and equally dangerous. The intricate web of social relationships that governed every aspect of pirate life. Unlike our modern world, where we can choose our friends, our living situations, and even our work colleagues to some extent, you'd be trapped in a floating society, with no escape from personalities that might be completely incompatible with your own. The social hierarchy aboard a pirate ship was rigidly defined, yet constantly shifting. At the top sat the captain, whose authority was absolute during times of danger, but who could be voted out of power during calmer periods. Below him was the quartermaster, who managed the day-to-day operations, and often served as a mediator between the captain and the crew. Then came the sailing master, the boatswain, the gunner, and various other specialized roles, each with their own rank and privileges. But here's where it becomes particularly challenging for someone from our era of equality and human rights. Your position in this hierarchy wouldn't be determined by your education, your moral character, or your inherent worth as a person. Instead, it would be based on your physical strength, your willingness to use violence, your cunning, and your ability to intimidate others. The qualities that make someone successful in our modern world: empathy, cooperation, intellectual ability, emotional intelligence, would often be seen as weaknesses in this harsh environment. Let's consider how this would affect your daily interactions. In our world, if someone treats you poorly, you have options. You can report them to human resources, seek legal recourse, or simply walk away and find a new job or living situation. Aboard a pirate ship, your only recourse would be to fight back, and if you weren't skilled in combat or intimidation, you'd quickly find yourself at the mercy of those who were. The concept of workplace bullying, which we recognize as unacceptable today, would be not just tolerated, but expected as part of the natural order. The psychological pressure of this constant power struggle would be immense. Every interaction would carry the potential for conflict. Every conversation would be a test of your position in the social order. You'd need to be constantly vigilant, always ready to defend your status, or risk sliding down the hierarchy into a position where you'd be subjected to abuse, exploitation, and potentially life-threatening neglect. The decision-making process aboard these ships would also be foreign to our modern sensibilities. While pirates are often portrayed as democratic, voting on important decisions, the reality was far more complex and often brutal. Yes, crews would vote on matters like choosing a captain or deciding whether to attack a particular target, but these votes were heavily influenced by intimidation, bribery, and the threat of violence. The loudest, most aggressive voices often carried the most weight, regardless of whether their ideas were sound or safe. Imagine being part of a crew debate about whether to attack a well-armed merchant vessel. In our world, such a discussion would involve careful analysis of risks and benefits, consideration of legal and moral implications, and respect for dissenting opinions. In the pirate world, the discussion would be dominated by those who shouted the loudest, who had the most combat experience, or who were simply too intimidating to argue with. If you had concerns about the wisdom of the attack, expressing them might be seen as cowardice, potentially damaging your reputation and your safety among the crew. The concept of personal space and privacy that we take for granted would be completely foreign aboard a pirate ship. Every aspect of your life would be conducted in full view of your shipmates. Your eating habits, your sleeping patterns, your personal hygiene routines, your emotional responses to stress, all of this would be public knowledge. There would be no private moments to process your thoughts, no quiet spaces to retreat to when you needed solitude. This lack of privacy would have profound psychological effects. Humans need solitude to maintain their mental health, to process experiences, and to maintain a sense of individual identity. Without it, you'd gradually lose your sense of self, becoming increasingly dependent on the group dynamic for your emotional stability. The constant scrutiny would create a state of perpetual anxiety, as you'd always be performing for an audience, never able to truly relax or be yourself. The communication patterns aboard these ships would also be challenging for modern people. The language was crude, often violent, and heavily laden with profanity and sexual references. Conversations were frequently punctuated by threats, insults, and physical intimidation. The subtle, nuanced communication styles that we've developed in our modern world, the ability to disagree diplomatically, to express emotions constructively, to resolve conflicts through discussion, would be not just useless, but potentially dangerous in this environment. Let's explore the concept of loyalty and betrayal in pirate society. In our world, we have complex notions of loyalty, to family, to employers, to country, to ideals. These loyalties sometimes conflict, and we've developed sophisticated ways of navigating these conflicts. In the pirate world, loyalty was much simpler, but also much more fragile. You were expected to be completely loyal to your crew and captain, but this loyalty was contingent on mutual benefit, and could be withdrawn at a moment's notice. The psychological toll of this unstable loyalty system would be enormous. You'd never be able to truly trust anyone, because you'd know that their loyalty to you was conditional on your continued usefulness to them. Friendships would be shallow and strategic, alliances would be temporary, and the emotional support systems that we rely on in our modern world would be largely absent. The treatment of outsiders and prisoners would present another psychological challenge for modern people. Pirates were known for their brutal treatment of captives, their willingness to torture information from prisoners, and their casual attitude toward killing. If you were raised with modern values of human rights and dignity, participating in or witnessing such acts would cause severe psychological trauma. Yet refusing to participate might be seen as weakness or disloyalty, potentially putting your own life at risk. The gender dynamics aboard pirate ships would also be particularly challenging for someone from our era of increasing gender equality. While a few women did serve as pirates, they were rare exceptions, and the ships were predominantly male environments with all the associated problems of toxic masculinity. Strength, aggression, and sexual conquest were valued above all else, while qualities traditionally associated with femininity, compassion, nurturing, emotional intelligence, were seen as weaknesses. This hypermasculine environment
would create constant pressure to prove your toughness, your willingness to fight, and your sexual prowess. The hazing rituals, the crude jokes, the constant testing of masculine credentials would be exhausting and psychologically damaging. For women, the challenges would be even greater, as they'd face not just the general hardships of pirate life, but also the additional burden of sexual harassment, assault, and the need to constantly prove themselves in a violently male-dominated world. The attitude toward sexuality aboard these ships would be another source of psychological stress. In our modern world, we have complex and evolving understandings of consent, sexual identity, and healthy relationships. In the pirate world, sexual activity was often brutal, exploitative, and non-consensual. The treatment of women, whether crew members or captives, was frequently horrific by modern standards. Same-sex relationships, while sometimes tolerated, were also subject to violence and exploitation. The constant threat of violence would create a state of chronic stress that would wear down your psychological defenses over time. Unlike our modern world, where violence is the exception rather than the rule, aboard a pirate ship, violence was a daily reality. You'd witness brutal beatings, stabbings, and killings on a regular basis. You'd be expected to participate in battles where you might be required to kill or be killed. The psychological impact of this constant exposure to violence would be devastating. The concept of mental health, which we're increasingly aware of in our modern world, simply didn't exist in pirate society. There was no recognition of conditions like depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder. If you showed signs of mental distress, you'd be seen as weak, potentially dangerous, or possessed by evil spirits. There would be no counseling, no therapy, no medication to help you cope with the psychological trauma of your experiences. The superstitious nature of pirate culture would add another layer of psychological pressure. Pirates were notoriously superstitious, believing in omens, curses, and supernatural influences. If you were educated and rational, as many modern people are, you'd find yourself constantly at odds with beliefs that seemed primitive and illogical. Yet expressing skepticism about these beliefs could mark you as an outsider, potentially dangerous to the crew's morale and luck. The decision-making process for joining a pirate crew would also be very different from our modern career choices. In our world, we carefully consider job opportunities, weigh the pros and cons, and make informed decisions about our futures. Most men who became pirates did so out of desperation, driven by poverty, unemployment, or legal troubles. The idea of choosing piracy as a career path, with full knowledge of its dangers and hardships, would be almost incomprehensible to someone with modern alternatives. The concept of retirement, or long-term planning, would be foreign to pirate life. In our world, we save for retirement, plan for the future, and think in terms of decades-long career arcs. Pirates lived entirely in the present, with no expectation of a peaceful old age or a comfortable retirement. The average pirate career lasted only a few years, ending in death, capture, or abandonment of the lifestyle due to injury or illness. The isolation from family and loved ones would create another form of psychological torture. In our interconnected world, we can maintain relationships across great distances through technology. We can call home, send messages, and stay connected with our support networks. Pirates were completely cut off from these connections, often for years at a time. The knowledge that your family might never know what happened to you, that you might never see your children grow up, would create a profound sense of loss and despair. The lack of intellectual stimulation would also take a psychological toll. In our world, we have access to books, films, music, art, and endless sources of information and entertainment. We can pursue hobbies, learn new skills, and engage in intellectual discussions. Aboard a pirate ship, the only entertainment would be crude jokes, gambling, and the occasional song or story. The lack of mental stimulation would lead to a gradual dulling of the intellect and a loss of the curiosity and creativity that make us human. The attitude toward law and morality would create constant internal conflict for someone raised in our modern legal system. While pirates had their own codes of conduct, these were often brutal and arbitrary. The idea of universal human rights, of laws that apply equally to all people, of justice systems designed to protect the innocent. These concepts would be completely foreign to pirate society. You'd be expected to participate in activities that you'd been taught were morally wrong, creating a constant state of ethical conflict.
The economics of pirate life would also be psychologically challenging. In our world, we work for regular wages, save money, and build financial security over time. Pirate income was entirely dependent on successful raids, which were unpredictable and often unsuccessful. You might go months without any income, then suddenly receive a large windfall that would need to last until the next successful raid. This financial instability would create constant anxiety and make long-term planning impossible. The medical and health beliefs of pirates would be another source of psychological stress for modern people. Pirates believed in bloodletting, exorcism, and other practices that we now know to be harmful or useless. If you became ill or injured, you'd be subjected to treatments that might be more dangerous than the original problem. The lack of understanding about hygiene, disease transmission, and basic medical care would mean that treatable conditions would often become fatal. The religious and spiritual aspects of pirate life would also be challenging. While many pirates maintained some religious beliefs, these were often mixed with superstition and used to justify violence and theft. The idea of using religion to rationalize immoral behavior would be disturbing to someone from our more secular, morally complex world. Yet abandoning all religious belief in the face of constant danger and uncertainty would leave you without the spiritual comfort that many people need to cope with stress and trauma. The concept of personal growth and self-improvement, which is so important in our modern world, would be completely absent from pirate life. There would be no opportunities for education, no chances to develop new skills beyond those directly related to sailing and fighting, no possibility of advancing yourself through merit or hard work. Your life would be static, defined entirely by your current circumstances, with no hope of bettering your situation through legitimate means. The attitude toward authority would be another source of psychological conflict. In our world, we have complex relationships with authority figures. We respect legitimate authority while maintaining our rights as individuals. In pirate society, authority was based entirely on strength and intimidation. You'd be expected to submit completely to those above you in the hierarchy, while dominating those below you. This crude power dynamic would be psychologically damaging, and would conflict with modern values of equality and human dignity. The impact of chronic stress on your mental health would be devastating. The constant fear of death, the uncertainty of your next meal, the lack of medical care, the brutal working conditions, the volatile social dynamics, all of these factors would create a level of stress that would be overwhelming for someone accustomed to the relative stability of modern life. The physical effects of this stress, insomnia, digestive problems, immune system suppression, accelerated aging, would compound the psychological damage. The concept of personal identity would also be under constant assault. In our world, we define ourselves through our relationships, our achievements, our values, and our interests. In pirate society, you'd be defined entirely by your role on the ship and your position in the hierarchy. Your individual personality, your unique talents and interests, your personal history, all of these would be irrelevant to your daily survival. You'd gradually lose your sense of self, becoming simply another anonymous member of the crew. As we near the end of this second part of our journey, let's take a moment to reflect on the psychological challenges we've explored. The social dynamics, the constant violence, the lack of privacy, the unstable relationships, the absence of mental health support, all of these factors would combine to create a psychological environment that would be devastating for someone from our modern world. The human mind needs certain things to remain healthy: security, meaningful relationships, intellectual stimulation, personal growth, and a sense of purpose. Pirate life provided none of these, instead offering only danger, exploitation, brutality, and despair. The psychological toll of such an existence would be overwhelming, leading to mental breakdown, despair, and often suicide. As you rest tonight, take comfort in the knowledge that you live in a world where your mental health is valued, where you have choices about your relationships and your future, where you can seek help when you need it. The complex social support systems that we've built in our modern world, from healthcare to education to legal protections, are precious gifts that no pirate ever knew. In our final part of this peaceful journey, we'll explore the practical and survival challenges that would make pirate life impossible for modern people. We'll discover how the lack of basic skills, the absence of modern tools and knowledge, and the sheer brutality of survival in an unforgiving environment would test your resourcefulness in ways you've never imagined. But for now, let the gentle thoughts of your comfortable, secure world carry you toward peaceful rest. Sleep well, dear listener, knowing that you're safe from the psychological storms that once battered the minds of those who sailed under the black flag. Welcome to the final part of our peaceful journey through the harsh realities of pirate life, dear listener. As we drift into these last chapters of our exploration, let's discover the practical skills and survival challenges that would make life aboard a pirate ship nearly impossible for someone from our modern technology-dependent world. Imagine waking up on your first morning aboard a pirate vessel, and the quartermaster assigns you a task that seems simple enough: go aloft and reef the topsail. In our modern world, we're accustomed to detailed instructions, training manuals, and safety protocols. But here, you'd be expected to know instinctively what these words mean and how to execute this potentially deadly task. The reality is that most of us would have no idea where to begin. The sailing skills required to operate an 18th century vessel were incredibly complex, and took years to master. Every rope, every sail, every piece of rigging had a specific name and function. The mizzen topsail, the foreroyal, the jib boom, the bowsprit, these weren't just quaint nautical terms, but essential components of a complex system that required intimate knowledge to operate safely. A single mistake in handling the rigging could result in a broken mast, a torn sail, or worse, the death of crew members. Consider the simple act of tying knots. In our modern world, most of us know perhaps 2 or 3 basic knots, maybe a simple overhand knot, or a bow knot, for our shoes. But aboard a pirate ship, you'd need to know dozens of specialized knots, each designed for specific purposes. The bowline, the clove hitch, the sheet bend, the running bowline. Each of these would be essential for different aspects of sailing and rigging work. Your life and the lives of your shipmates would literally depend on your ability to tie these knots quickly and correctly, often in the dark, in stormy weather, with wet, numb fingers. The navigation skills required would be equally challenging. Before GPS, radar, and modern navigational aids, sailors relied on celestial navigation, dead reckoning, and careful observation of wind and weather patterns. You'd need to know how to use a sextant to measure the angle of the sun or stars above the horizon, how to calculate your position using complex mathematical formulas, and how to interpret the subtle signs that indicated changes in weather or the presence of land. The weather prediction skills that pirates developed were crucial for survival, yet completely foreign to our modern experience. We're accustomed to detailed weather forecasts, satellite imagery, and advance warning of storms. Pirates had to read the sky, the wind, and the sea itself to predict dangerous weather. A slight change in the color of the water, a particular pattern of clouds, or the behavior of seabirds could mean the difference between life and death. Without these skills, you'd be constantly surprised by storms that any experienced sailor would have seen coming hours in advance. The physical skills required for combat would be another insurmountable challenge. Pirates needed to be proficient with cutlasses, pistols, and boarding axes. They had to know how to fight in the cramped confines of a ship's deck, how to swing from rigging to board an enemy vessel, and how to use every available weapon in close combat. These weren't skills you could learn from books or videos. They required years of practice and real combat experience. Let's consider the firearms of the era. Flintlock pistols and muskets were notoriously unreliable and difficult to use. Loading a flintlock pistol required specific knowledge of powder measurements, wadding, and priming. The weapons were inaccurate, prone to misfiring, and took considerable time to reload. In the heat of battle, when your life depended on your weapon functioning properly, the complex loading procedure would need to be automatic, performed without thought even under extreme stress. The medical skills expected of pirates would also be far beyond most modern people's capabilities. While ships might have a designated surgeon, every crew member was expected to have basic medical knowledge. You'd need to know how to treat wounds, set broken bones, and deal with the various diseases that plagued sailors. The treatments available were primitive and often more dangerous than the original injuries. Amputation was common, performed without anesthesia using crude tools. The ability to hold down a shipmate, while the surgeon sawed off his leg would be expected, as would the stomach to assist in other brutal medical procedures. The carpentry and repair skills needed to maintain a wooden ship would be extensive. Ships were constantly in need of repair, planks would split, joints would work loose, and the constant motion of the sea would cause structural damage. You'd need to know how to work with wood, how to caulk seams to prevent leaks, how to repair damaged rigging, and how to fashion new parts from available materials. These weren't occasional tasks but daily necessities for keeping the ship seaworthy. The cooking skills required aboard a pirate ship would be challenging in ways that our modern kitchens could never prepare us for. Imagine trying to prepare meals for dozens of hungry men using only a small galley with a single wood-burning stove, in rough seas that would send pots and pans flying. The ingredients would be limited to preserved meats, hardtack, and whatever vegetables could be obtained during raids or port visits. You'd need to know how to prepare meals that were nutritious enough to prevent scurvy, palatable enough to maintain morale, and safe enough to avoid food poisoning. The water management skills would be crucial for survival. Fresh water was precious, and knowing how to find, collect, and preserve it could mean the difference between life and death. You'd need to know how to identify sources of fresh water on unfamiliar islands, how to collect rainwater efficiently, and how to purify contaminated water using primitive methods. The ability to ration water fairly while maintaining crew morale would be a delicate balancing act that required both practical knowledge and leadership skills. The trading and negotiation skills needed for successful piracy would be complex and culturally specific. Pirates didn't just attack ships at random, they needed to know which vessels were worth pursuing, how to assess the value of cargo, and how to negotiate with merchants and officials in various ports. The ability to speak multiple languages, understand different currencies, and navigate the complex web of colonial politics would be essential for long-term success. The geographical knowledge required would be vast. Pirates operated throughout the Caribbean, along the American coast, and in the Indian Ocean. You'd need to know the locations of safe harbors, the patrol patterns of naval vessels, the seasonal weather patterns that affected sailing, and the political situations in various colonies. This knowledge couldn't be gained from books, but required years of experience and constant attention to changing circumstances. The animal husbandry skills would be necessary for maintaining the livestock that many ships carried. Goats, pigs, and chickens were kept aboard for fresh meat and eggs, but caring for these animals in the harsh conditions of a ship required specific knowledge. You'd need to know how to feed them on limited rations, how to keep them healthy in cramped quarters, and how to butcher them efficiently when needed. The swimming ability that we take for granted would be surprisingly rare among pirates. Many sailors of the era couldn't swim, believing that if they fell overboard, it was better to drown quickly than to prolong their suffering. However, pirates who could swim had significant advantages in boarding actions and in surviving shipwrecks. The ability to swim in rough seas, often while weighted down with weapons and clothing, would be a crucial survival skill. The fire management skills would be essential for both cooking and defense. Fires aboard wooden ships were constant hazards, and knowing how to start, maintain, and extinguish fires safely would be crucial. You'd need to understand how to use different types of fuel, how to manage cooking fires in rough weather, and how to fight fires that threatened the ship's survival. The rope and cordage skills would extend far beyond simple knot tying. Pirates needed to know how to splice ropes, how to repair damaged rigging, and how to fashion new lines from available materials. The ability to work with hemp, manila, and other natural fibers would be essential for maintaining the complex rigging systems that powered these vessels. The metal working skills required for maintaining weapons and tools would be considerable. Pirates needed to know how to sharpen blades, repair firearms, and fashion new metal components from available materials. The ability to work with iron and steel using primitive tools would be essential for keeping weapons and equipment in working order. The leadership skills required for successful piracy would be complex and often contradictory. Pirates needed to be democratic enough to maintain crew loyalty, yet authoritarian enough to command obedience in crisis situations. The ability to inspire men to follow you into deadly combat, while also managing the delicate politics of sharing limited resources, would require exceptional interpersonal skills.
The patience and mental fortitude required for long voyages would be extraordinary. Modern people are accustomed to instant gratification and constant stimulation. The ability to endure months of monotonous routine, broken only by periods of intense danger, would test your psychological resilience in ways that modern life rarely demands. The adaptability required for pirate life would be extreme. Plans would change constantly based on weather, enemy movements, and opportunities for profit. The ability to switch from peaceful sailing to violent combat at a moment's notice, while maintaining effectiveness in both roles, would require remarkable flexibility and mental agility. The resource management skills would be crucial for survival. Everything aboard a pirate ship would be limited and precious: food, water, ammunition, medical supplies, and repair materials. The ability to make do with whatever was available, to improvise solutions to unexpected problems, and to stretch limited resources over long periods would be essential survival skills. The cultural awareness needed for successful piracy would be extensive. Pirates operated in a world of diverse cultures, languages, and customs. The ability to understand and exploit these differences, to blend in with local populations when necessary, and to avoid cultural misunderstandings that could lead to conflict, would be crucial for long-term success. The timing skills required for successful raids would be precise and intuitive. Pirates needed to know when merchant vessels were likely to be carrying valuable cargo, when naval patrols would be absent from certain areas, and when weather conditions would favor their operations. This knowledge required careful observation, intelligence gathering, and an understanding of the rhythms of maritime commerce. The psychological manipulation skills needed for intimidation and control would be dark arts that most modern people would find morally repugnant. Pirates relied on their fearsome reputation to encourage surrender without fighting, but creating and maintaining this reputation required deliberate acts of cruelty and violence. The ability to project menace, while also maintaining crew loyalty, would require sophisticated understanding of human psychology. The emergency response skills would be essential for survival in a world without modern rescue services. When things went wrong at sea, and they frequently did, pirates had to rely entirely on their own resources and skills. The ability to respond quickly and effectively to fires, storms, combat damage, and medical emergencies would be crucial for survival. The bartering and trade skills would be necessary for obtaining supplies and disposing of stolen goods. Pirates needed to know the relative values of different commodities, how to negotiate favorable exchanges, and how to avoid being cheated by merchants and traders. The ability to assess the quality and authenticity of goods would be essential for profitable operations. The understanding of different currencies and their exchange rates would be crucial in an era before standardized international currency. Spanish pieces of 8, Dutch guilders, English pounds, French livre, each had different values that fluctuated based on the purity of the metal and the political stability of the issuing nation. You'd need to know how to test coins for authenticity, how to weigh precious metals accurately, and how to calculate fair exchanges in your head, often while under pressure during negotiations. The ability to assess the quality of textiles, spices, and other trade goods would require years of experience. Pirates needed to know the difference between genuine silk and cheap imitations, between high-quality spices and inferior substitutes, between valuable hardwoods and common timber. This knowledge couldn't be gained from books, but required hands-on experience with countless different products, and the ability to spot subtle differences that indicated quality and value. The diplomatic skills required for dealing with colonial governors, port officials, and other authority figures would be complex and delicate. Pirates often needed to obtain pardons, purchase supplies, or negotiate safe passage through controlled waters. The ability to present yourself as a legitimate merchant or privateer, while hiding your true identity and intentions, would require exceptional acting skills and deep understanding of colonial politics. The intelligence gathering skills would be essential for successful operations. Pirates needed to know which ships were carrying valuable cargo, which routes were lightly patrolled, and which ports offered the best opportunities for trade or resupply. This required maintaining networks of informants, understanding the schedules of merchant fleets, and interpreting rumors and gossip to identify profitable opportunities. The camouflage and deception skills would be crucial for avoiding detection and capture. Pirates needed to know how to disguise their ships, how to blend in with legitimate maritime traffic, and how to deceive potential victims about their intentions. The ability to maintain false identities and cover stories would be essential for operating in civilized ports. A skilled pirate would need to know how to alter the appearance of their vessel quickly and convincingly. This might involve changing the configuration of sails, adding or removing decorative elements, or even painting false gun ports to make the ship appear more or less threatening, as the situation demanded. The ability to transform a fearsome pirate vessel into an innocent merchant ship, and back again, would require detailed knowledge of ship design and maritime customs. The psychological warfare skills would be essential for intimidation and control. Pirates relied heavily on their fearsome reputation to encourage surrender without costly fighting. Creating and maintaining this reputation required carefully calculated acts of cruelty and mercy, designed to spread fear, while also demonstrating that surrender was preferable to resistance. The ability to project menace when necessary, while also showing mercy to those who cooperated, would require sophisticated understanding of human psychology and group dynamics. The storytelling and reputation management skills would be crucial for maintaining the psychological advantage that made piracy profitable. Pirates needed to ensure that stories of their exploits spread throughout the maritime community, but these stories needed to be carefully crafted to enhance their fearsome reputation, while not providing too much specific information that could be used against them by authorities. The endurance skills required for pirate life would be extraordinary. The physical demands of sailing, fighting, and surviving in harsh conditions would require stamina that few modern people possess. The ability to function effectively while exhausted, hungry, and in constant discomfort would be essential for survival. Consider the physical demands of a typical day aboard a pirate ship. You might be awakened before dawn to adjust sails in response to changing wind conditions, then spend hours hauling heavy ropes and adjusting rigging. The work would be performed in all weather conditions: blazing sun, driving rain, or freezing cold. Your hands would be raw from rope burns, your back would ache from constant bending and lifting, and your feet would be sore from standing on hard wooden decks for hours at a time. The ability to climb rigging, while the ship pitched and rolled in heavy seas, would require not just physical strength, but also exceptional balance and coordination. Imagine trying to climb a rope ladder 40 feet above the deck, while the ship lurched unpredictably beneath you, with wet ropes that could slip from your grasp at any moment. The mental focus required to perform such tasks safely, while exhausted and under pressure, would be extraordinary. The decision-making skills under pressure would be crucial for survival. Pirates frequently faced life or death decisions with limited information, and no time for careful consideration. The ability to make quick, effective decisions while under extreme stress would be essential for both individual survival and crew effectiveness. During a battle, you might need to decide in a split second whether to reload your pistol or draw your cutlass, whether to pursue a fleeing enemy or help a wounded shipmate, whether to continue fighting or attempt to retreat. These decisions would need to be made while cannonballs were flying overhead, while the deck was slippery with blood, and while the screams of wounded men filled the air. The psychological pressure of making such decisions repeatedly would be overwhelming for someone unused to combat. The tactical thinking required for successful piracy would be complex and multifaceted. Pirates needed to understand not just how to fight, but when to fight, where to fight, and most importantly, when not to fight. The ability to assess the strength of potential targets, to predict their likely responses, and to plan attacks that maximized profit while minimizing risk would require sophisticated strategic thinking. A successful pirate captain would need to consider factors such as wind direction, sea conditions, the time of day, the proximity of naval patrols, and the likely cargo and defensive capabilities of potential targets. The ability to process all this information quickly and develop effective attack plans would require years of experience and natural tactical ability. The improvisation skills would be essential for survival in a world without modern supply chains or repair facilities. When equipment broke, when supplies ran low, or when unexpected problems arose, pirates had to find solutions using only the materials at hand. The ability to fashion repairs from scrap materials, to create tools from available resources, and to solve complex problems with limited options, would be crucial for survival. For example, if the ship's main mast was damaged in a storm, you might need to fashion a temporary replacement from available timber, using rope and canvas, to create a makeshift sail system that could get the ship to safety. If the water barrels were damaged, you might need to find alternative containers, or devise methods for collecting and storing rainwater. The ability to think creatively and work with your hands would be essential for such improvisations. The risk assessment skills would be crucial for long-term survival. Pirates needed to constantly evaluate the dangers and opportunities presented by different courses of action. The ability to weigh the potential profits of a raid against the risks of capture or death, to assess the trustworthiness of potential allies, and to identify threats before they became deadly, would require sophisticated judgment and intuition. The weather prediction skills that pirates developed were crucial for survival, yet completely foreign to our modern experience. We're accustomed to detailed weather forecasts, satellite imagery, and advance warning of storms. Pirates had to read the sky, the wind, and the sea itself to predict dangerous weather. A slight change in the color of the water, a particular pattern of clouds, or the behavior of seabirds could mean the difference between life and death. Without these skills, you'd be constantly surprised by storms that any experienced sailor would have seen coming hours in advance. The ability to read natural signs would extend beyond weather prediction. Pirates needed to know how to find fresh water on unfamiliar islands by observing the behavior of animals and the growth patterns of vegetation. They needed to understand the tides and currents that could carry them to safety or dash them against rocks. The ability to navigate by observing the flight patterns of birds, the color and temperature of the water, and the movement of clouds would be essential for survival in an era before modern navigational instruments. The herbal and natural medicine knowledge would be essential for treating illnesses and injuries when proper medical supplies were unavailable. Pirates needed to know which plants could be used to treat various ailments, how to prepare and administer natural remedies, and how to identify poisonous plants that could be dangerous if consumed accidentally. The knowledge of which fruits and vegetables could prevent scurvy, which herbs could treat digestive problems, and which plants could be used to disinfect wounds would be crucial for maintaining health during long voyages. The ability to gather and prepare these natural medicines would require extensive knowledge of botany and traditional healing methods. The survival skills required for operating in tropical environments would be extensive. Pirates needed to know how to find shelter from hurricanes, how to obtain fresh water in arid climates, and how to avoid the numerous diseases and dangerous animals that inhabited tropical regions. The ability to recognize and avoid poisonous snakes, spiders, and insects would be essential for survival during shore expeditions.
The knowledge of which foods were safe to eat in unfamiliar environments, how to prepare tropical fruits and vegetables, and how to avoid the numerous tropical diseases that could be fatal would require extensive experience and careful observation. The ability to adapt to different climates and environments would be crucial for pirates who operated throughout the Caribbean and beyond. The boat handling skills would be essential for the small craft operations that were crucial to pirates' success. Pirates frequently used smaller boats for reconnaissance, for landing parties, and for pursuing prizes in shallow waters where larger ships couldn't follow. The ability to handle these small craft in rough seas, to beach them safely, and to launch them quickly when needed would be essential skills. The rowing techniques required for moving these boats efficiently would be far more complex than modern recreational rowing. Pirates needed to coordinate their efforts with other rowers, to maintain course in rough seas, and to row for hours at a time without becoming exhausted. The ability to use oars as weapons when necessary, and to row silently when stealth was required, would be additional skills that few modern people possess. The fishing and foraging skills would be essential for supplementing the limited food supplies available aboard pirate ships. Pirates needed to know how to catch fish using primitive equipment, how to identify edible plants and fruits, and how to hunt small game when opportunities arose. The ability to preserve caught fish and gathered food for future consumption would be crucial for maintaining nutrition during long voyages. The knowledge of which fishing techniques worked best in different conditions, how to make and repair fishing nets and hooks, and how to identify the best fishing locations would require extensive experience and understanding of marine ecosystems. The ability to supplement ships' rations with fresh caught fish could mean the difference between health and malnutrition during extended voyages. The astronomical knowledge required for navigation would be far beyond what most modern people possess. Pirates needed to know the positions and movements of stars, planets, and other celestial bodies, and how to use this knowledge to determine their location and course. The ability to use a sextant to calculate longitude and latitude, and to chart courses using celestial navigation would require mathematical skills and astronomical knowledge that few modern people have. The understanding of how the Earth's rotation affects navigation, how to account for the precession of the equinoxes, and how to use different stars for navigation at different times of year would be essential for successful long-distance voyages. The ability to navigate in cloudy conditions using dead reckoning and other techniques would be crucial when celestial navigation was impossible. The linguistic skills required for successful piracy would be extensive. Pirates operated in a multilingual world where Spanish, French, English, Dutch, and Portuguese were all common languages of commerce and diplomacy. The ability to speak multiple languages, to understand different dialects and accents, and to communicate effectively with people from diverse cultural backgrounds would be essential for successful operations. The knowledge of maritime terminology in different languages, the ability to negotiate in foreign languages, and the understanding of cultural nuances that could affect business dealings would be crucial for pirates who operated throughout the Caribbean and beyond. The ability to blend in with local populations by speaking their language and understanding their customs would be essential for gathering intelligence and avoiding detection. The accounting and mathematical skills required for managing pirate finances would be more complex than might be expected. Pirates needed to calculate shares of booty, to manage group finances, and to keep track of expenses and income over extended periods. The ability to perform complex calculations in your head, to keep accurate records without formal bookkeeping systems, and to fairly distribute wealth among crew members would be essential for maintaining crew morale and preventing conflicts. The understanding of compound interest, currency exchange rates, and the relative values of different forms of wealth would be crucial for making sound financial decisions. The ability to assess the long-term value of different investments and to plan for future expenses would be essential for successful pirate operations. The blacksmithing and metalworking skills would be essential for maintaining weapons and tools in good condition. Pirates needed to know how to sharpen blades, to repair damaged firearms, and to fashion new metal components from available materials. The ability to work with iron and steel using primitive tools would be essential for keeping weapons and equipment in working order. The knowledge of how to forge new weapons and tools when necessary, how to repair damaged metal fittings, and how to work with different types of metal alloys would be crucial for maintaining operational capability. The ability to set up and operate a forge aboard ship, or to locate and use smithing facilities in various ports, would be essential skills for any pirate crew. The leather working skills would be necessary for maintaining and repairing the various leather goods that were essential for pirate operations. From weapon sheaths to water containers, to protective clothing, leather goods required regular maintenance and occasional replacement. The ability to work with leather, to repair damaged items, and to fashion new leather goods from available materials would be essential skills. The knowledge of how to tan hides, how to cut and sew leather, and how to create waterproof leather goods would be crucial for maintaining essential equipment. The ability to repair shoes, belts, and other leather items would be essential for personal comfort and operational effectiveness. The glass making and repair skills would be valuable for maintaining the various glass items that were essential for navigation and daily life. From compass lenses to drinking vessels to window panes, glass items were fragile and difficult to replace. The ability to repair broken glass items, to cut new glass when necessary, and to create simple glass objects would be valuable skills for any pirate crew. The understanding of how to work with different types of glass, how to use primitive glass cutting tools, and how to create watertight seals around glass installations would be essential for maintaining navigational equipment and improving living conditions aboard ship. The textile and clothing repair skills would be essential for maintaining the limited clothing and fabric goods available to pirates. The ability to sew, to patch damaged clothing, and to create new garments from available materials would be crucial for personal comfort and protection from the elements. The knowledge of how to waterproof fabrics, how to repair torn sails, and how to create protective clothing from canvas and other materials would be essential skills. The understanding of different types of fibers and fabrics, the ability to spin thread and weave cloth when necessary, and the knowledge of how to dye fabrics using natural materials would be valuable skills for improving quality of life aboard ship. The ability to create warm clothing for cold climates and light, protective clothing for tropical conditions would be essential for operational effectiveness. The pottery and ceramic skills would be valuable for creating and maintaining the various ceramic items used aboard ship. From water jugs to cooking pots to storage containers, ceramic items were fragile and difficult to replace. The ability to repair broken pottery, to create new ceramic items from available clay, and to fire ceramics using improvised kilns would be valuable skills. The knowledge of how to work with different types of clay, how to create glazes from natural materials, and how to fire ceramics at the proper temperatures would be essential for maintaining essential equipment. The ability to create waterproof storage containers and cooking vessels would be crucial for food preservation and preparation. The beekeeping and honey production skills would be valuable for pirates who operated from established bases. Honey was a valuable commodity that could be used for food preservation, medicine, and trade. The ability to maintain beehives, to harvest honey safely, and to use honey for various purposes would be valuable skills for any pirate community. The understanding of bee behavior, the ability to construct and maintain beehives, and the knowledge of how to process honey and beeswax would be essential for successful honey production. The ability to use honey for wound care, food preservation, and brewing would be valuable skills for improving quality of life and health. The distillation and brewing skills would be essential for producing the alcoholic beverages that were crucial for pirate morale and trade. The ability to distill rum from sugarcane, to brew beer from available grains, and to create other alcoholic beverages would be valuable skills for any pirate crew. The knowledge of fermentation processes, the ability to construct and operate stills and brewing equipment, and the understanding of how to flavor and preserve alcoholic beverages would be essential for successful alcohol production. The ability to use alcohol for medicinal purposes, as well as for recreation and trade, would be crucial for pirate operations. The animal training and handling skills would be essential for managing the various animals that pirates might encounter or keep. From horses for land operations to monkeys for entertainment to parrots for communication, animals played important roles in pirate life. The ability to train and handle these animals effectively would be valuable skills. The understanding of animal behavior, the ability to provide proper care and nutrition for animals in maritime environments, and the knowledge of how to use animals for various purposes would be essential skills. The ability to train animals for specific tasks, such as carrying messages or providing entertainment, would be valuable for pirate operations. The explosive and gunpowder skills would be essential for the combat operations that were central to pirate success. The ability to mix gunpowder, to create improvised explosives, and to use gunpowder for various purposes would be crucial skills for any pirate crew. The knowledge of how to store gunpowder safely, how to create fuses and detonators, and how to use explosives for mining and demolition would be essential for successful pirate operations. The ability to create fireworks and other pyrotechnic devices for signaling and intimidation would be valuable skills. The mining and precious metal skills would be valuable for pirates who operated in areas with mineral resources. The ability to identify valuable ores, to extract metals from ore, and to refine precious metals would be valuable skills for increasing the profitability of pirate operations. The knowledge of how to pan for gold, how to identify valuable gemstones, and how to assess the quality and purity of precious metals would be essential for successful treasure hunting. The ability to use mining tools and techniques would be valuable for pirates who operated in areas with known mineral deposits. The cartography and map-making skills would be essential for navigation and planning pirate operations. The ability to create accurate maps, to record the locations of hazards and resources, and to use maps for navigation would be crucial skills for successful pirate operations. The knowledge of surveying techniques, the ability to use primitive measuring instruments, and the understanding of how to represent three-dimensional terrain on two-dimensional maps would be essential for successful map making. The ability to create charts showing water depths, currents, and other maritime hazards would be crucial for safe navigation. The espionage and intelligence gathering skills would be essential for successful pirate operations. The ability to gather information about enemy movements, to identify valuable targets, and to assess the defenses of potential prizes would be crucial for planning successful raids. The knowledge of how to maintain cover identities, how to cultivate sources of information, and how to assess the reliability of intelligence would be essential for successful espionage operations. The ability to communicate secretly with Confederates and to coordinate intelligence gathering activities would be valuable skills. The siege warfare and fortification skills would be valuable for pirates who operated from established bases or who needed to capture fortified positions. The ability to construct and improve fortifications, to conduct siege operations, and to defend against enemy attacks would be valuable skills for any pirate community. The knowledge of military engineering, the ability to construct and operate siege weapons, and the understanding of defensive strategies would be essential for successful siege operations. The ability to coordinate complex military operations involving multiple units and objectives would be valuable for large-scale pirate operations. The diplomacy and negotiation skills would be essential for dealing with the complex political situations that pirates often encountered. The ability to negotiate treaties and agreements, to manage relationships with colonial authorities, and to resolve conflicts peacefully when possible would be valuable skills for successful pirate operations. The knowledge of international law and customs, the ability to understand and navigate complex political situations, and the understanding of how to use diplomatic immunity and other legal protections would be essential for successful diplomatic operations. The ability to maintain relationships with multiple parties while pursuing conflicting interests would be valuable skills. The logistics and supply management skills would be essential for maintaining pirate operations over extended periods. The ability to plan and coordinate supply operations, to manage inventory and resources, and to ensure adequate supplies for extended voyages would be crucial skills for successful pirate operations. The knowledge of how to calculate supply requirements, how to organize and manage supply chains, and how to improvise when supplies were unavailable would be essential for successful logistics operations. The ability to coordinate multiple supply sources and to manage complex distribution networks would be valuable skills. As we continue to explore these countless skills and abilities that would be required for pirate life, it becomes increasingly clear just how unprepared modern people would be for such an existence. Each skill we've discussed represents years of training and experience,
that would be essential for survival in the harsh world of 18th century piracy. The depth of knowledge required in each area would be extraordinary. It wouldn't be enough to have a superficial understanding of these skills. Your life would depend on your ability to execute them perfectly under extreme conditions. The margin for error would be minimal, and the consequences of failure would often be fatal. Consider the time investment required to master even a fraction of these skills. In our modern world, we typically specialize in one or two areas and rely on others for the rest. A pirate would need to be competent in dozens of different areas, each requiring years of practice and experience to master. The breadth of knowledge required would be overwhelming for anyone accustomed to our modern specialized world. The physical and mental demands of acquiring and maintaining these skills would be extraordinary. Many of these abilities would require constant practice to maintain proficiency, and the harsh conditions of pirate life would make such practice both difficult and dangerous. The ability to maintain multiple complex skill sets while also dealing with the daily challenges of survival would be a full-time occupation in itself. The integration of these skills would be equally challenging. It wouldn't be enough to know how to navigate, fight, and repair equipment separately. You'd need to be able to coordinate all these activities simultaneously while under extreme stress. The ability to switch rapidly between different types of tasks and maintain effectiveness in all areas would require exceptional mental flexibility and physical stamina. The teaching and learning environment aboard a pirate ship would be harsh and unforgiving. There would be no patient instructors, no gradual introduction to complex concepts, and no opportunity to learn from mistakes without severe consequences. You'd be expected to learn by observation and trial, with failure potentially resulting in injury or death. The motivation for acquiring these skills would be pure survival rather than personal interest or career advancement. In our modern world, we have the luxury of choosing what to learn based on our interests and goals. Pirates had to master whatever skills were necessary for survival, regardless of their personal preferences or natural abilities. The resource limitations would make skill acquisition even more challenging. There would be no textbooks, no training materials, and no specialized equipment for learning. You'd have to acquire complex skills using whatever materials were available aboard ship, often while those materials were needed for other essential purposes. The time pressure would be constant and relentless. Unlike modern education, where you can take time to master concepts thoroughly, pirate life would require you to acquire functional competence in essential skills as quickly as possible. The luxury of taking time to perfect your abilities would be unavailable when survival depended on immediate competence. The consequences of skill deficiency would be severe and immediate. In our modern world, lacking certain skills might limit your career options or personal satisfaction. In pirate life, skill deficiency could result in injury, death, or abandonment by your crew. The stakes would be much higher than anything most modern people have experienced. The peer pressure and social dynamics would make skill acquisition even more challenging. Pirates would have little patience for crew members who couldn't pull their weight, and the social consequences of incompetence would be severe. The ability to maintain your position in the crew hierarchy would depend on your demonstrated competence in essential skills. The environmental factors would make skill practice and acquisition more difficult. Rough seas, limited space, poor lighting, and constant interruptions would all interfere with your ability to learn and practice new skills. The controlled environments that we use for learning in our modern world would be completely unavailable. The safety considerations would make skill acquisition dangerous. Many of the skills essential for pirate life would be inherently dangerous to learn and practice. The ability to acquire these skills without seriously injuring yourself or others would require exceptional caution and natural ability. The competitive environment would make skill acquisition a matter of survival. Pirates would be competing with each other for position and resources, and superior skills would be essential for maintaining your place in the crew. The collaborative learning environment that we're accustomed to in our modern world would be largely absent. The practical application would be immediate and unforgiving. Unlike modern education, where you can practice in controlled environments before applying skills in real situations, pirate life would require you to use skills in life or death situations immediately upon learning them. The ability to perform under pressure would be essential from the very beginning. The interdependence of skills would make the learning process even more complex. Many of the skills essential for pirate life would be interconnected, requiring you to have competence in multiple areas before you could effectively use any of them. The ability to coordinate multiple skill sets would be essential for survival. The camouflage and deception skills would be crucial for avoiding detection and capture. Pirates needed to know how to disguise their ships, how to blend in with legitimate maritime traffic, and how to deceive potential victims about their intentions. The ability to maintain false identities and cover stories would be essential for operating in civilized ports. The endurance skills required for pirate life would be extraordinary. The physical demands of sailing, fighting, and surviving in harsh conditions would require stamina that few modern people possess. The ability to function effectively while exhausted, hungry, and in constant discomfort would be essential for survival. The decision-making skills under pressure would be crucial for survival. Pirates frequently faced life or death decisions with limited information and no time for careful consideration. The ability to make quick, effective decisions while under extreme stress would be essential for both individual survival and crew effectiveness. As we reach the end of our peaceful journey through the harsh realities of pirate life, let's reflect on what we've discovered. The practical skills required for survival aboard a pirate ship would be far beyond what most modern people could ever hope to master. We've become specialists in our modern world, each of us expert in narrow fields, but dependent on others for most of our daily needs. The pirates of the Golden Age were generalists by necessity, required to master dozens of skills that we would consider separate professions today. They were sailors, soldiers, carpenters, doctors, cooks, merchants, and survivors all rolled into one. The depth and breadth of knowledge required for their lifestyle would take decades to acquire, even with proper training and guidance. Our modern world has given us many advantages that we often take for granted. We have specialized tools for every task, detailed instructions for complex procedures, and experts available to help us when we encounter problems beyond our abilities. We have safety nets, backup systems, and technological aids that make our lives safer and more predictable than any pirate could have imagined. The romantic image of pirates as free-spirited adventurers pursuing treasure and excitement bears little resemblance to the harsh reality of their lives. They were, in many ways, prisoners of their own choices, trapped in a lifestyle that demanded constant vigilance, extraordinary skill, and the willingness to face death on a daily basis. The freedom they supposedly enjoyed came at the cost of comfort, security, and often life itself. As you settle into your comfortable bed tonight, surrounded by the conveniences and safety of modern life, take a moment to appreciate the complex civilization that makes your peaceful existence possible. The clean water flowing from your tap, the food preserved safely in your refrigerator, the medical care available when you need it, the legal protections that ensure your rights. These are treasures more valuable than any pirate's hoard. The skills that we've lost in our modern specialization, the ability to navigate by the stars, to predict weather from natural signs, to survive entirely on our own resources. These were not romantic adventures, but harsh necessities born of a world without the safety nets we now enjoy. We have traded these survival skills for something far more precious: the ability to live in peace, to pursue our individual interests, and to contribute to a society that values human life and dignity. The pirates of old would likely marvel at our modern world, not for its technology or convenience, but for its basic humanity. The idea that people could live without constant fear of violence, that differences could be resolved through discussion rather than combat, that the weak could be protected rather than exploited. These would seem like impossible dreams to those who lived by the sword. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, wherever you are in this wide world, let the gentle rhythm of progress and civilization carry your thoughts. You are part of a human story that has moved far beyond the brutal necessities of pirate life, into a world where kindness, cooperation, and mutual respect are not just possible but expected. Sleep well, dear listener, in the knowledge that you live in an age where the treasures of peace, safety, and human dignity are available to all. Thank you for joining me on this peaceful journey through the harsh realities of pirate life. May your dreams be filled with calm seas and safe harbors, and may you wake refreshed and grateful for the remarkable civilization that surrounds and protects you. Until we meet again, sleep well wherever you are in this beautiful world of ours.